Cannabis Common Sense, the show that tells the truth about marijuana and the politics behind its prohibition.
Hello, and welcome from Time for Hemp. Thank you for tuning in to our show today. We have a very special guest on our show. He's one of the founding fathers of the hemp movement and has been hailed by High Times magazine as the patron saint of the cannabis movement. He's author of the book, The Emperor Wears No Clothes, which has been considered the Bible of the hemp movement. And he's been one of the most hardest working activists in the past 17 years, doing everything he can to make this wonderful plant legal. Jack Hare. Jack, welcome to my show.
Thanks, guys. How you doing?
Fine, thank you for coming.
Okay.
Can you tell me how you first began getting involved in the hemp movement and what it was that got you all excited about it and where you're from?
Well, it kind of happened in two stages. In 1969, I was 30 years old, and this young lady, turned me on to some pot because she thought I was very square. And she thought I never had any real feelings, and I told her, of course, I felt everything that nobody could feel more than I could feel. But she insisted, and because I liked her, I kept trying it. Nothing happened the first 2 or 3 times, and one day she came home with some Acapulco Gold, and she said, I want you to keep smoking these. And I got very stoned, and she put earphones on me, and I heard music in color, and I said, wow, this is the best I've ever felt in my life, and it's illegal. So, you know, that's how I kind of got involved. And a couple of years later, a friend of mine over a little pot he had sold me, we had written on the back of a paper bag a 1 to 10 scale, and then we had written the delineation, a 1 to 10 scale on how good pot was, so that, and so then pretty soon we delineated to buzz, mild high, mild stoned, very stoned, and stoned. Right. And so what happened at that point was that the government picked up the book that I had written with Al Emanuel and had made it its world standard for some thousands and thousands for ongoing clinical studies. So everybody had to say, how good was the grass you just smoked? And these thousands of studies where they're actually smoking in 74, 75, 76, and they'd have to say a 6 or a 7 on my scale. Or
a 7 on Jack Hare's scale.
And then they had to say, did you have a buzz or a mild high? And buzz, for instance, we had delineated as buzz, the first feeling you got from grass, that something was different inside you. Mild high, television was a shade clearer, and finally, when we got up to like very stoned, you could get lost walking in the kitchen.
Yeah.
You remember those?
Yeah.
And so one day I walked into the marijuana office in 1973 for the California Marijuana Initiative, which in 1972 had gotten 34% of the vote and actually made the ballot. And I walked in there, and I didn't know anything about marijuana other than this funny little book that my friend and I had thought we'd put together. And we met all these kids in there that knew all these esoteric information about cannabis that we did. You know, at first we got that marijuana made almost all the paper on earth. We couldn't get up the paper sign with the fiber and fuel sign, but hemp for paper, that almost all paper was made out of marijuana until about the middle or the end of the last century. Here's a book almost 200 years old, completely made out of pot. It's made. See, all paper was made from. All paper was. I know, but all paper was made from rags, and the predominant rag was hemp, marijuana. And this is so. This paper lasts for near ever. And in fact, if it was legal, its pulp would now make all of our paper. 1 acre of hemp equals 4 acres trees and makes every grade of paper. And also, these kids started telling me all the towels and diapers and all these other things. And I was just interested in getting high, but I thought that was an interesting idea. And this is 1973.
Now, is that when you first began your research?
Well, yeah, I started writing for them, and they told me things like, how could you not research when you find out this? I was 30, maybe 33 at this time, that canvas was the Dutch pronunciation of cannabis. That canvas sales, like in old Ironsides and all through the last century, that the word canvas meant cannabis, and canvas sales were cannabis sales. And canvas covered wagons that went west were cannabis covered wagons. Wow, what a trip. And then, you know, all coming from this one plant. It was softer, warmer, longer lasting. It was an incredible plant. And I thought, wow, this is interesting. But I never realized how much it could go. It would just go and go and go. That this plant could make all the paper, fiber, fuel to make the food and protein for the whole earth, that it would be the #1 food to feed the earth's people and the earth's animals if it wasn't illegal, that's the best protein. Its seed oil almost exactly matches human blood plasma. No other seed oil on earth does. Birds live 10 to 20% longer if they have hemp seed in their diet, whether they're birds in the wild or birds in a cage. So I found out by 1973 and 4 when I found this information that our politicians, probably through complete ignorance, had made the whole system, all of our education, so ignorant that we had become lemmings. We were killing ourselves. The number one plant for paper, fiber, and fuel from the natural cycle had been outlawed. That somehow the synthetic cycle had won, when the number one thing in the natural cycle could outproduce it and completely clean up the atmosphere. So my partner, Captain Ed, who had become my partner in 1973 and doing the politics of this, said, we have to teach everybody in the world. So we went around and told everybody. But it was a slow process. And as we did, we started to learn more about hemp. And that's how I got involved in the movement in 1973.
Now, in your 18-year walk in this path, you know, I'm sure there's been a handful of people who have inspired you, or should I say march in this path, because you've been out there kicking it. You really have.
Yeah.
And there's been some people who have inspired you, I'm sure, and I'm also confident you've come across reliable resources. Where have you found what are your statistics to back up all the wonderful things that you're spouting out?
Well, all of them come from the Department of Agriculture, both the State Department of Agriculture of Kentucky and Wisconsin, who, by the way, April 5th of 1991 is holding a brand new meeting on this. Okay. I found this in the archives this was the actual minutes of the congressional testimony in 1937 and the senatorial testimony. All plastic was to be made out of pot. All paper was to be made out of marijuana. Bulletin 404, 1960. The whole bulletin is here reproduced. It was actually made on marijuana paper, on hemp paper, hemp pulp paper, the first hemp pulp paper in history. I mean,
so back there they were saying fiber, fuel, paper.
And then in 1937, they wrote an article that was published in 1938 called Popular Mechanics' New Billion-Dollar Crop. Yeah. And this is exactly the way it appeared in Popular Mechanics in February of 1938. And what happened when this appeared is that it would make a new machine that brought the harvesting down from 300 hours to harvest and break an acre to less than an acre. It would make all the cellophane, it would make all the dynamite, 25,000 new products. First time the word billion had ever been used with an American agriculture crop.
First time?
First time it had ever been used with an American agriculture crop. And actually that everybody thought linen was made out of flax, but it actually says here in Popular Mechanics, echoing Britannica, that almost all linen was actually made from hemp, and that none but an expert could tell the difference. Here it says the paper industry offers even greater possibilities. An industry that amounts to over $1 billion a year. That's about 80 to 100 billion now. Wow. And of that, 80% is imported. But it says right here, but hemp will produce every grade of paper, and government figures estimate 10,000 acres devoted to hemp will produce as much acres as 40,000 acres of average pulp land. So the whole back of the book, what we took out is hundreds and hundreds of documents.
It's all your documents.
And so that everything we say in the front half, there's 300-400 documents that over and over and over show and prove and prove and reprove. They're all government sources. So you don't have to believe me.
No, I was just curious.
You know, it's just it's a matter of record.
Okay, now once you realized all this, and you started putting the parts together, this puzzle, and you got this whole picture, right?
Yeah.
What was your first impression, dude? I mean, what did you feel? Anger, rage, enthusiasm,
quiet,
shock?
I wondered how a people could outlaw a natural thing. And I was one of the people that probably thought it was okay before I started smoking pot. So I wondered why I did it. And I realized I was ignorant, that they didn't teach us this in school. They didn't teach us that the flag, that the Betsy Ross and the flags were all made out of pot. They didn't tell us that the first and second draft of the Declaration of Independence was made out of pot. Maybe it was important. But you know, it's so important that when you start to tell them, they say children don't need to know, you begin to get suspect of the big corporations who run the museums and put out what they want to put out. Or maybe it's just that nobody wants the embarrassment of having admitted they didn't know anything. One of the technicians here, I just told her about hemp for paper, and canvas was the Dutch pronunciation of cannabis and all those. She said, I didn't know that, I didn't know that. And then another one did it, I didn't know that, I didn't know that. So that means ignorance. You can't get mad at ignorance, you can just get mad at the situation that creates ignorance, and in this case, the law, which I decided with my partner, Captain Ed, made me take a pledge to do until I was dead. It was legal at 84, worked for the re-legalization of the #1 plant for paper, fiber, and fuel, and probably the healthiest thing a human being ever does. Along the way, I found out that hemp, when you smoke it, dilates your arteries, lowers your blood temperature, your body temperature, lowers your ocular pressure, dilates your bronchioles better than anything else we have, and finally, it lowers your stress, the #1 killer on earth. So here is the healthiest thing that statistic after statistics indicated you might even live longer if you smoke pot every day than if you do no drugs whatsoever, and you lived 8 to 24 years longer than people that used alcohol and tobacco. What kind of idiot would make somebody else be a lemming for some stupid law that politicians in their ignorance must have made up, because if they knew it, they'd be criminal and working for pharmaceutical companies. Like George Bush used to do with Lilly, which was owned by Quail.
Yeah.
Isn't that nice?
Now, I know that you keep using the word hemp, hemp, hemp. The name of your organization's hemp, stands for Help End Marijuana Prohibition. And hemp seems to be your favorite word. But in all honesty, isn't hemp marijuana? I mean, why aren't you using the word marijuana? Why do you keep using it, hammering it into people's minds as hemp, when it's really marijuana?
Well, along the way, I began to read all this William Randolph Hearst yellow journalism, whether it was from him or from his newspaper editors or some conjunction
But
between
his
them.
yellow journalism, what do you mean?
Yellow journal, Hearst, if you look up yellow journalism in the dictionary, it'll tell you William Randolph Hearst newspaper. It means when you do sensational, outrageous stories.
And he was doing that with?
Well, he was doing it with marijuana. He's had headlines, marijuana goads boys to bloodlust and murder in 30 days. Well, you know, I've never seen anybody do anything on pot except get the munchies, you know. So,
yeah,
I don't know. I mean, and they would say that marijuana turns man into a gunman, that axe murder smoked marijuana cigarette 4 days before.
Oh, kind of like that reefer madness
yeah,
stuff.
well, yeah, and you know, and they use the word marijuana, marijuana, marijuana. When I look back, you know what the word marijuana comes from? The Mexican Sonoran colloquialism, slang, for intoxicant. It didn't even mean the flower of the hemp plant, since our politicians put out this, they call this marijuana, but actually it's the flower of the hemp plant, and the stalk, of course, is the hemp of the hemp plant. Or from it comes the hemp of the hemp plant. But the word marijuana became known by the poor people, the Mexicans and blacks who smoked it along the border and in the southwest and around New Orleans. And they called it marijuana or reefer or grifa. And what happened was William Randolph Hearst never used the word hemp. Now, we had hundreds and hundreds of hemp medicines. It had been the number 1 and 2 and 3 medicine in America through most of the 1800s. But until 1863, it was the number 1 medicine we had in the United States for asthma, for muscular spasms, for tetanus. It was the only thing. When somebody got tetanus, we gave them huge, massive doses of hashish, or what they called hemp extractums or cannabis extractums, and we give them so much that they get more in a day or two than you and I have done in our life.
Wow, paid to get sick.
And well, wait a second, no, I don't think so. These guys didn't like it, but for 9 days while they had the tetanus, which is feces in the blood basically, and then before the toxins could pass through the liver, and you got the lockjaw, and the only thing that could keep your muscles soft enough so you didn't die from this, and to allow the toxins to pass, was to take huge, massive doses of hashish.
Wow.
And nobody ever died from it. In fact, I want to repeat that. There's never been a single death from marijuana cannabis.
Not one?
None that we know of, except at the hands of police. I mean, there probably is some car accidents, but it's well known that people do seem to drive a lot safer. They've done study after study after study, from car and driver to the University of Washington, and that they found out that people actually drive a little safer as far as getting home than even people that are straight. They just miss their freeway exits more often. But when you're straight, you miss your freeway exits, you go, wow. But when you're stoned, you go,
I understand. We've got
I like that.
I relate. I understand that we got a roll-in that we want to share with the audience, that you've been doing a hemp tour around the nation several years off and on, and you've taken your message across the United States.
I speak a couple hundred colleges a year.
And you're probably one of the best known speakers on the topic. And I believe here this particular was shown at Santa Clarita.
I don't know, I've done hundreds.
Santa Clara. And Santa Clara, California.
Or Santa Cruz.
Santa Cruz, who knows? Santa something in California.
Okay.
Because your message is pretty strong and pretty much the same and consistent, which makes you different from a lot of people who go out there and say one thing one day the next, and one day the next. Like, aren't we all happy campers type of comments, right?
I'm a happy camper.
I'm a happy camper. And so I think it might be possible to take that role in now, please.
So without any further ado, let me introduce to you the man who is really behind this screen, Jack Herber.
Thanks, Tom. And the crew you guys got in Santa Cruz, between Theodora, No Guns Melody, and Carlos, the comic news reprinting that, and I know my friend Rachel got some information on it. Nice turnout, and I hope that one of the things you learned from me tonight is how I learned about this, which was like, I had no idea. I mean, if any of you think you didn't have any idea, I didn't have any idea that marijuana, when I started writing, when I wrote my first book about pot, I had no idea that marijuana and hemp came from the same plant. In fact, I wouldn't have known what hemp was. And I think I had heard it made rope, but I figured dandelions made rope. I guess I found out later that dandelions did. But here I was with, smoking pot. I'm 30 years old, I just got divorced, and I smoked some pot. Well, how I smoked some pot was this girl decided that she wanted me to get high because she thought I was pretty square. And I thought I was really cool. I had read thousands of books. I had known all sorts of Chinese restaurants. I had, and one night in an argument over some pot that a friend of mine and I had sold, he had sold to me, we had argued about the grade of the marijuana he had sold me, and whether it was he called it an 8 or a 9, and I called it a 5 or a 6, and we sat down, stoned, and on the back of a paper bag wrote out what became the first trans-high quotations years later when, and it was, how much you paid for lids, pounds, and kilos in San Francisco, Chicago, New York, and San Francisco, and LA, and this was back in 1972, late 72 and early 73. And I had, and then this cartoonist came along and these other people came along and everybody had a little idea of what you should say about these these different stages of getting high. So we got high again and we made up a set of rules for getting high, which was based on, and before we get to the serious part, you gotta remember, I love this plant. I really love this plant.
That's great. I can obviously see that you have appreciation for Mother Earth. And I see that you got a standing ovation and a lot of appreciation from the people there. But as you go across the country, what kind of response do you get? What kind of attitudes do you receive in Nebraska, Indiana, Mayberry area,
Well, in a lot of cases, we're talking to the choir. Well, in a lot of cases, the people that show up 300, 400, 500 at the college are the choir. But a lot of the students bring along other students, force other students, people that have either read our information, our book, or High Times, and say, you've got to listen to this guy, you've got to dispute it and refute it and get off your position. And even people that smoke pot oftentimes think they're doing something morally bad because they were taught it was morally bad. They don't want to drink alcohol maybe, they don't want to smoke tobacco, but they want to smoke a little bit of pot once in a while. And the response I've gotten has been really great because the television channels come out, the newspapers come out, the state, the city newspapers, the college newspapers, and they have given us, they come out usually with an attitude to treat us tongue-in-cheek, and then we challenge them with a $10,000 challenge.
10,000 what?
Prove our information wrong. We give them a $10,000 challenge. That hemp, we're betting that there's no other plant on earth that you could outlaw the fossil fuels for cars, you could outlaw the cutting down of trees for paper, that you could, and if you were looking for the natural cycle from a plant that grows on earth, that all the other plants that grow on the planet Earth don't even equal a fraction of hemp on an annual, renewable, sustainable, latitude-wise, climate-wise, soil-wide, planet-wide, drought-wide basis. And hemp is the #1 plant that grows on our planet.
And you got a 10 grand challenge stating that, backing you up.
And it's nobody, well, one guy, Dr. Walker at LSU, took it up, a doctor of horticulture, took it up, came back and said we may be as much as 5% wrong. He didn't say we were, but we refuted him and disputed him, and Dr. Walker is now one of my biggest supporters in the country. So, I mean, we don't have anybody. I mean, it's just information. If anybody's going to get mad at information, you should be mad at the government for not giving you this information.
Evidently.
I mean, obviously, this information is available through your encyclopedia and dictionary. I mean, why shouldn't we have known cannabis and canvas were the same thing? Could we have outlawed canvas? No. We outlawed marijuana, going back to an earlier question. We outlawed marijuana because they didn't know. So I decided to use the word hemp, the real, true English word, just like it says in our law books here in California. Hemp. You must use the dictionary English word. And the dictionary English word of this plant is hemp. It's Latinized and Greek Greekicized botany, a botanical name, is called cannabis. And it's been called hundreds of other names, from boo to marijuana to Mary Jane, but bang and bong and daga in Africa, where they've been the #1 religious ritualistic drug, as well as relaxant for most of Africa. So what I ever saw wrong with this plant was nothing. I couldn't find anything wrong. I couldn't find any dead bodies except at the hands of police.
Yeah.
I couldn't find any lung cancers. It causes more precancerous lesions, but I couldn't find any of those. I went to Dr. Donald Tashkin, who did the study, which all the Partnership for Drug-Free America quotes supposedly on the lungs. I take part in the study. I get paid by the government to smoke pot for you.
No.
I have since 1981.
Hey, how do you sign up?
Well, you sign up, but you got to smoke really garbage pot. You smoke much better pot if you know a farmer in Humboldt County. Somebody with a good halide life. And, and I never felt bad. When a person sells a tobacco pipe, you're killing somebody 8 to 24 years sooner. But if you sell him a marijuana pipe that he's going to put pot in, he's going to live longer than somebody that does no drugs.
Longer?
And he's going to live 8 to 24 years longer than the person smoking the tobacco pipe. But for the marijuana pipe, he's going to go to jail for 3 years minimum under new guidelines of the Bush administration.
For a pipe?
For a pipe. If he sells it in a store, like what the old quote head shops, which never even had pipes, they used to have just things to turn your head around in the early 60s until some kids brought some pipes in, and they sold as well or better than the posters.
Well, praise God for freedoms in America.
Oh, yeah, the end of freedom. But, the fact is that nobody can beat a fact, and I don't care. You can go beat up on a third-rate. You can go beat up on a third-rate country. But when you start beating up on millions of its citizens, 20 or 30 millions of citizens, and telling us we're crazy, when we have the #1 plant on earth for paper, fiber, and fuel, that we don't need to take fuel out of Kuwait. We do not need to put carbon dioxide up in the atmosphere from fossil fuels that stay up forever, that we have an annual, renewable, sustainable plants on earth that can do it, and the one that does it best is outlawed. Then it's a pretty insane society. Yeah. And I know that my mama would have told me I was an insane lemming if I followed this politician 1 inch. That's what I tell kids when I go to high schools. I teach at high schools. I just taught in Santa Monica high schools this day, and I got these kids, they want to know that their politicians are lemmings. They want to know these facts.
Okay, now, you've talked about politicians, and you've talked about all the people and the doctors and so on and so on. How about a debate? I mean, how about one on who? Who have you debated?
Congressman John Conyers, Detroit, head of the House Judiciary Committee on Crime under Rangel. And he did not know any of this information. I debated him, and he lost the debate about 175 to 1 there at his own alma mater in Detroit, University of Detroit, or Detroit U. And I think the only person left on his side of the auditorium was his aide.
Who else? Who else?
Well, he didn't know this information. It was like an unfair fight. Here, I've been practicing for this fight all my life.
Years.
I just did a medical doctor in Gainesville who came to debate me, and he said, would you give your child marijuana as a medicine for asthma? I said, of course. I gave it to my children when they were 9, 11 for asthma. Before that, I used to take them to before Dr. Tashkin at UCLA had told me in 73 and 74 that this was the best medicine in the world for asthma, we were taking my son Mark to the hospital out in Simi Valley. We were putting him in an oxygen tank. We were shooting with him adrenaline. He was taking tons of theophylline. Theophylline is the only legal medicine you can get. It kills kids 6 to 12 years sooner. There's 65 deaths a year, 6,500, 43 deaths last year. 6,500 people were admitted to emergency rooms for the theophylline, the only legal asthma medicine. And what else did it do? Oh, about 1,000 brain deaths from kids who had temperature when they took theophylline. Now, marijuana has none of these effects. Marijuana works much safer, much faster. There's never been a known death from it. And so I beat him in debate in front of his own college there in Gainesville. And he came over and congratulated me when I gave him the paper on theophylline and asthma. So we don't lose any debates. I had a guy from the DEA said that, well, you can make fuel out of anything. We can make it out of eucalyptus leaves. I said, you can grow 100 million pounds of pot for every 1 pound of eucalyptus leaves. He said you can still make fuel out of it. The DEA isn't playing with a full deck.
No.
They're just a bunch of fascist people that want to enforce the law, as far as I can see, so they can get more power.
Okay, now from what I understand, that it's true that you have financed the movement, financed the book, got the book out there, got all the word out there. You have been the one out there just kicking ass, right?
Yeah, nobody can beat a fact. I found that out when I was a little kid. My dad told me about all our relatives that were killed during World War II, and he said, don't you ever put up with anybody shoving you around. I had cops beat me up in L.A. so many times. I used to make the headlines in the paper here in the metro section all the time, out there petitioning for this thing. They used to do all sorts of weird things. And we decided to take all my wealth and all my ability to make money and finance this movement. And my book seems to be doing a quite a bit of
greatest
the job.
underselling underground book
in the country.
Yeah, very congratulations on that too.
Can I put in
mean
a plug for the book?
Yeah, please.
Okay, you can get the book. It's called The Emperor Wears No Clothes. It's the Hemp and the Marijuana Conspiracy. And you can get it from Hemp, H-E-M-P, 5632 Van Nuys Boulevard, Van Nuys, California, 91401. It's $12.95 plus $2 mailing and handling to Hemp, 5632 Van Nuys Boulevard, Van Nuys, California, 91402. $12.95 plus $2 mailing and handling. We'll get it right back to you. All the facts and documentations are in there so that nobody has to guess about this. You'll be in sure ground. You'll be clear when you communicate about hemp.
Okay. Is there any closing statement you'd like to make at the moment, Jeff? You got just about 30 seconds or so.
Thousands of kids have come and told me their whole families have come back together over hemp, that they've read the book, brought it to their moms and dads, and they're together again, smoking with their parents. So I'll tell you, the time for reefer madness is over.
Yay!
And the time for reefer gladness should begin.
All right. All right. I'd like to thank Jack for being on our show. It has been educational and eye-opening and fun.
Thanks, guys.
And I hope that this show has an ability to bring the truth out to the nation. I have been told that we are now being shown in about 25 states, 47 cities, and our audiences are growing. If you have anything that you think would participate in what we're doing here, we are focusing soon on the victims of this war. Jack has friends who are suffering as victims, don't you, Jack?
Till the next century, they're in prison for doing something, smoking a flower from the ground.
And we want to find some way to get them free, and we want to put
extends their life.
faces on these victims. Please contact us. If you're aware of people in your area who have knowledge that we need to bring to our show so that we can enlighten the people who are observing us, please do. I know Jack will have other people to direct to us in the future, and I hope to have him back on our show. Anytime you want to come back, Jack, please don't even hesitate to ask. Come on back.
All right.
And I ask that our audience out there tell their friends about the show and do everything you can to get the truth spread out that Jack has worked so hard for. He's moved 17 years and he's still going, and there's a reason for it. He believes in what he's doing, and it must be true. Hemp is the one plant that is going to save this planet. And I believe that with the help of people like Jack, Captain Ed, and all the other people who are working very hard, this will come true. I ask you to get out there, raise your voice, let them know that our brothers and sisters must be set free. And remember, the next time you see me on your television show, you'll know that we're going to get together and teach you everything we can about this plant. And it will be time for hemp. Thank you. Hello, and welcome for Time for Hemp. Today on our show, we're going to be discussing the legalization of hemp, the most wonderful plant in the universe. Today on our show, we have Jack Hare and Captain Ed discussing this. They're two of the main proponents on the initiative that they're putting on the ballot in 1992 to legalize cannabis hemp as a productive crop for fuel, fiber, paint, and industrial use.
Industrial uses, medicinal uses, nutritional uses, and personal use in private is the way we call it.
Okay, okay. And I take it you and Captain Ed have been working side by side on this for a long time. How did the two of you meet? And tell me a little bit about yourself, Captain Ed, and that.
Well, I owned a shop in the early 70s called Heads and Highs.
Okay.
And at that time, the California Marijuana Initiative started up, and we ended up getting it on the ballot and getting, how many, 1 million signatures at that time?
Half a million.
Half a million signatures, and I met Jack at that time, and we've been working in the hemp movement ever since.
That's the simple version. I came into the store to pick up the boxes because I had a car, and nobody else in the movement had a car. I came to pick up the donation boxes. They set me up. I said, "I'm not going to give it to you. You look too straight to me." We became friends. This is like early 1973.
He had on his fossil fuel suit.
Right.
Polyester.
Anyway, I got to know Ed. I went to the first meeting, my first statewide meeting with him, with my son Mark and Captain Ed in a little Pinto. We went up to San Luis Obispo, I think, and we found out a really strange thing, that we had all the same similar experiences as a kid. And after he had told me all about marijuana and the marijuana legalization, this guy made me promise to work to legalize marijuana until I was dead.
Ah, you did that?
Yeah, till I was dead. It was legal, or I turned 84, and we had a shake on it, and we agreed to this and smoke a joint on it, and that we agreed to do this because we knew that a lot of people didn't know the information we know. Of course, we thought Normal would tell him, or other people would tell him. We didn't realize it would be him and I all along. But we made this agreement, and we thought it'd be legal by 75, 76, because of all the incredibly positive medical stories that are coming out about marijuana extending your life, being good for you, good for your glaucoma, chemotherapy, lowering stress. We were sure pot would be legal totally by 76, 77. So I didn't mind making an agreement when I was 33 years old to not quit till I was 84, because I figured it'd only take 2 or 3 more years to legalize it.
Okay.
Wow.
Very surprised.
It just shows you.
Now, I've had a chance to listen to you talk a little bit about one of the problems why it's not legalized. And Captain Ed, you seem to focus at the fact that people don't get out there and vote, and that there seems to be a real drawback to people getting to the polls, and that they need to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. My other organization is VOTE, Victory Over the Enemy,
Hey, I like that.
which is the unregistered voter in the state of California.
Oh, okay.
What we have to do is upgrade our standard of voting. We can send people to the moon, and we're sending satellites into outer space. I believe that our system of voting in this country is very adequate, very old. It needs to be renewed and revised and updated. I think that the voting should be more important than Christmas.
Okay.
I think that we should spend a lot of money on educating the people. Look at it this way. The government is in favor of the United States public to vote. I feel that it's our duty to show them, or to find a way to help the government find ways to help people vote. And I think with television, the telephone, computer optics, and satellite dishes, and all this technology that we've got, we should be able to sit home and vote on all these important issues. And I'm sure the government wants everybody to vote. It's our constitutional right, and they stand behind it. I think that they should get behind us and help us to get out there and make voting a very important issue. It is important, even if you're not in favor of, say, the California Marijuana Initiative or the Hemp Initiative, that's fine. We would love for you to come out and speak your opinion. We want you out there voting. We want you to take an active part in this country. If you do, then I think this will solve the problem.
Also, isn't it true that if you end up behind bars because of some of the laws pertaining to hemp, marijuana, that you lose your right to vote when you come out? And it's very important that someone who may have a brother or a sister or a loved one in jail who can't get out there and vote their peace of mind should go out there and cast that vote to help set them free.
Absolutely.
Your opinion doesn't count until you vote.
That's
Yeah.
right.
And that's, you know, that's it. It's just an opinion.
That's
No reason
right.
to
Just
complain
what
unless
do
you
they
pull
call
the
opinions?
chain.
They're just like, well, I can't say that in here.
Now, how did you all become involved in this political action?
Wow.
Fred, you got, he brought me in. I'm still the new kid on the block to him. I've only been doing this 18 years. He's been doing it 20.
Wow.
I still work for him.
Okay.
I was in one of the biggest movements ever in this country. After we ended the war in Vietnam, it was automatic. It seemed that we were going to end the marijuana prohibition in this country. And the wave of enthusiasm that went through this country in 1972, the young people that went out there and worked for this thing, at that time we had no leader like we have Jack now, who's leading this whole campaign and doing a magnificent job. I'm so proud of him. I can't believe it. But at that time we had no heads in 1971, 72. It was just the people so caught up in this movement that they were running in from all over everywhere and coming to me, and they educated me on it, and they got me into it. I didn't know anything when I first started in this.
Who were the people who got you
It was
involved
the
in
people on the
70s?
street that would run into me and say, "Did you hear there's a marijuana initiative on the ballot?" And I went, "No, I didn't know any of this. What's going on?" He said, "Well, some guys in San Francisco, Gordon Brunell and Michael Ulrich, who owned a Morphia paper company, had sponsored this California Marijuana Initiative, and it just kind of like grew, and everybody was going around. There were no bosses. When I started in this, and I got over 140,000 signatures out of my store in a 5-month period, and I didn't even know I did it, because I didn't know what I was doing. I was young and dumb, you know, and full of excitement. You know, I really thought this was the greatest thing in the world, and we were going to change the world. At that time, I knew nothing about the benefits of marijuana except the, you know, getting high, and I didn't think it was a bad thing. And
Have either of you gotten disillusioned down your road of path? I mean, you got to come across a lot of people who are like walls, and so many days in and days out, and floods of sweat, and people, you're going 17 hours a day, and the people you hire only want to go home in 8 hours, and you're pulling your hair out saying, this can't be, you gotta...
We've registered over hundreds of thousands of people in the last 20 years, and Jack and I have been on the streets. The two most important reasons people don't vote in this country, they're afraid. They're afraid they'll lose their job. They're afraid the government will find out and take their firstborn. I stand there and talk to these people. I cannot believe that in this country I'm hearing this. And if I was in Russia or somewhere like that, 20 years ago I was hearing this, and today it's even worse.
Police Chief Ed Davis of Los Angeles in '72 took the California Marijuana Initiative, went in there with his people, with his intelligence people, to the Register of Voters and pulled the names of the people that signed it and said he was going after it. There was such a hue and cry that that it was illegal for anybody in government ever to see a petition again, and special laws were written.
Whoa.
But then Chief Darrell Gates in 1982 or early 83 went into Lyons Lair, a store, and seized the petitions, had his police officers say that they were going to seize our petitions in there, and arrested the people in the store and said that they were going to use the names that had signed the marijuana petition to go after and see what other type of illegal activities they were doing. Well, that has a hell of a chilling effect on people.
Can he do that?
Ed and I stood our ground, went against him, went through the newspapers. The newspapers finally brought him up over and over again until he apologized and gave the petitions back, and they agreed not to look at them. But do you see what kind of chilling effect that has? Hey, you want to sign a petition? Oh, no.
It's almost
Darrell
like
Gates.
they don't want us to register people to vote.
Yeah, well,
and
Darrell
that's
Gates has got a
the most
reputation
American
across the
thing you can
nation
do.
I went to jail for 15 days for registering voters after dark on federal property in 1981, I think it was, registering voters at the FBI building. Ed and I had set up a 24-hour-a-day voter registration booth and signed the marijuana initiative in 1982. And we took over the outside of the building, not the inside, but the
outside.
busiest intersection in the United States at the corner of Wilshire and Veteran, between Veteran and Sepulveda. And here we had 92,000 cars a day, thousands of people parking behind the FBI building, and they arrested us, and they said, you cannot do this. I said, well, I'm not going to pay you a fine or go on probation. So I did 15 days in prison rather than give him a $5 fine.
Wow,
You know, we had
that's kind of like telling Jesus you can't practice on Sunday.
it was a fine line. The
Okay,
sidewalk.
now we've got a clip of the two of you here running through some hemp fields, I believe. I don't know if you should say the state or not. Do you think it's safe to say what state?
Omaha, Nebraska.
Omaha, Nebraska. Working very hard and exploring the wonderful things that make you inspired, shall we say. Right. Can we see that tape, please?
This patch right here?
Yeah, keep going by the bridge.
Look at it. Let's smoke some. Let's pull it all and take it home. What are we talking about?
Now, keep going up by the streets.
Look at this. Marijuana, folks. Growing wild. Look at this. Hang on.
It's right up here. There's a whole patch.
This? That's marijuana?
All that right back there is right up
Is this
here.
marijuana?
Yeah, pull up here.
Can I pull over now?
Pull over. You're here, brother. This is it. Look at the patch. Oh, don't go too far.
Relax.
It might be soft, yeah.
Marijuana, growing wild. Look at this, folks. Look at this. This is hemp. This is hemp. None of this is female, though. This is all male. Look at this. Look at the seeds.
Here, get a picture of us in the marijuana field.
Yeah,
Come on,
Jack. Where's Jack?
Come in here.
Jack, get inside.
Come on in here. Film here.
Yeah, once you guys get buried inside of it, and I'll find you inside of it, okay? Try not to destroy it all. Okay. Wow, look at this. It's a marijuana patch. Growing wild. Oh, who do we have in the marijuana patch but Jack Harrer and Ed Adair?
Well, hi, guys.
They must be on the hemp tour. Are you on the hemp tour,
We're
guys?
on the hemp tour. Yeah.
We've got hemp.
Look at
Don't
this.
pull out that male plant.
This stuff's growing
Let's
oxygen.
some females.
This is oxygen.
There's one right there.
This big one?
This one here, isn't this a female?
Oh, that's a male.
These are taller
All the
than
big ones
me.
are males. All right, well.
Let's go back down the road and find some females and smoke them.
Hey, you want to pull the
The males are.
Yeah, they bud 2 months before the female.
It smells so good.
You do whatever you want.
Look at this going on here.
Ed,
Wow.
But this is where it grows back here.
does it actually get buds in another couple months?
Yeah, but it's starting to bud now, some of them.
How do you see the males? These are the males.
Some of the white seeds. Right.
Oh, yeah, well, these are seeds.
These are the males here.
No, these aren't seeds, these are the males.
Here comes the car.
That's okay. We're just videotaping it. We're not picking it.
As long as you don't pick it.
I know it. It's sitting there. This is organic matter.
I can't look at it even?
Yeah, really. Look at it. Of the hemp. This is hemp land. We're going into hemp. Going into the hemp. Yes! We're inside of the hemp now. This is hemp. We're inside hemp. About 10 or 12 feet. See, look. See? This is the sky. Look at this great background. This is natural wild hemp at its finest.
Look at the size of that.
I know.
That sucker's must be about 9.
About 10.
That makes my eyes red just looking at that. Who did the camera work on that?
My son Mark did. Mark.
Yeah?
Yeah.
I bet he had a great day doing it.
Yeah, we had a great day. We couldn't smoke that leaf though.
Nah. Now, you said you found that where in Nebraska?
Yeah, right outside the police academy, outside of Lincoln. It grows all along that area.
Yeah.
They grew 350,000 acres in the Midwest for the war.
Yeah, okay.
And there's still thousands of acres growing wild. In fact, if we sent our Natural Guard to Nebraska to plant hemp and turning it into methane, methanol, and catalyzing it back into gasoline, instead of sending our National Guard to the Middle East to fight for oil, we would be saving this planet. You know, you won't save the planet no matter how much oil you burn and how many trees you cut down, but hemp is the best thing we have on Earth to replace the synthetic cycle and the fossil cycle with a natural cycle and to make all the paper on Earth.
Yeah, but now you're coming to the National Guard going to the Middle East. I mean, they're awfully busy, too, invading Humboldt County, aren't they? They really have their hands full with this war.
Well, in Hawaii, when I was in Hawaii a few weeks ago, while the war was still on, the National Guard was not allowed to go. None of the Hawaiian National Guard was allowed to go to the Middle East because they had to stay home to actually fight the marijuana crops. They were there to fight a bigger enemy, Bush told them, than Saddam Hussein, marijuana. I wonder if Bush knows he was holding on to pot when he jumped out of the parachute webbing was all made out of hemp.
Who knows what Bush knows? You know what I mean?
He's passed laws so we can't find it out.
Now, why is it so important to the two of you that hemp succeed with this legalization? I mean, what is the real drive behind what
Well,
you're doing?
my drive behind it is the fact when we first started out, we were just wanting to get high and smoke pot, and we'd run around to people and say, would you sign the marijuana initiative so we can get high? Okay. And then I realized back in the early 1980s that this wasn't going to work, so I started looking for alternative reasons. I think it was the medfly that came along back when we had our office over there on Victory Boulevard, and I was thinking of a way to save the farmers in this country, and all of a sudden I thought, well, you know, the hemp crop would be a good cash crop for the farmers to grow with this, with the medfly problem. And now with the problem with the government and the farmers losing all their farms and things like this, it's become such an environmental issue. Like we're saying right now, it's not marijuana anymore.
It's hemp.
It's the environment. We're fighting for this environment, and over the last 20 years, we've realized that we are trying to save the environment. We were trying to get high in the early days, but we've grown up.
We're still trying to get high.
We want to get high. There's nothing wrong with that. Well, but right now, we have babies. We have little children. We want to save this planet. Yeah. We want to educate the public of the truth.
You know, we bet a $10,000 bet that nobody can prove our information wrong. And where's the DEA agent? Where's the DEA agent? Where's the police officer? Where's the Daryl Gates? Where's the scientist from the Department of Agriculture that's got a better plant on Earth?
And let me take this moment. If anybody out there thinks that they want to come onto the show and debate Jack Hare, Captain Ed, or any of our other guests that we've had on the show, we'd love to have you on. And we'll give you equal right, equal time, and equal courtesy.
All you have to do is have facts. Facts.
Right.
Facts.
No baloney, no opinions. Just
Look,
facts.
you know, I'd like to state one thing. The United States people are probably some of the most patriotic people in the world. You can see by this war that's going on. And it's a criminal act if these people have been lied to because they're too good and they trust their leaders and their government and they love their government and their people and they trust anything these people say. And if they're lying to these people, then they're hurting the most beautiful people on the planet as far as I'm concerned, because I love this country. I wouldn't want to live anywhere else.
It's kind of like the Kennedy
I'm fighting for my right.
Watergate,
I'm fighting for the right that we fought for and won. And hemp And when we found out all the information on the hemp in the mid-'70s, late '70s, and Ed said, come on, Jack, sit down and write a book of all this information that you know. And we put it out. The first thing we did was get arrested by the police. They even seized my typewriter from which I was putting out the hemp information. I had to sue Daryl Gates in public on television in 1983 to get back my typewriter.
That's censorship of the press.
I would hate to think that our government would capitalize on the weakness of people, which like alcohol and tobacco.
Okay, we've got about 1 minute left. I'd like to have the two of you to please speak before we go into another roll-in. And I was wondering if you might take a moment to both of you speak, you know, what you really need to come through to you on this initiative, to the people who are involved.
You have to get good signatures. You got to be a registered voter, and you only sign registered voters. And if you do that, we're the all-volunteer initiative. And no volunteer initiative has made the California ballot since 1980, and that was a nuclear freeze. We're an all-volunteer initiative, and we can make it because you guys are going to come out and petition for us and with us every day and put it on the ballot. You already are. Now we have to teach you good signatures.
Okay, now for our roll-in, please.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This is Captain Ed coming to you from San Francisco, California. We're here on the set of the Doors movie. We're getting ready to be in the movie. As you can see, the bus is over here. Sam is dancing around, having a great time, and I'm bending down here because Len's here. But this is an experimental tape, so we don't really have to be too serious about what we're doing. It's a lot of fun. We're having a great time. The Grateful Dead show was fantastic. The crowd was great. The food was not too good. But we got hired to come to San Francisco while we were here to be in this Doors movie. And get paid for it. We can pay to be hippies and hate Ashbury. I think that's kind of poetic in itself. And so here we are in San Francisco. I'm going to be taking a few pictures. Right over here is where the extras all are over here, and Haight-Ashbury is like one street over, and that's where their drums are beating, and they're going to be doing some scenes. We're probably going to be driving the bus through here. They want to use it in the movie. So this is Captain Ed signing off for now, and I'll be talking at you later, along with some more interesting people along the way on this 1990 tour of the Grateful Dead, the Doors, Rainbow Gatherings, and anything else that happens to come along. See you in a little while.
Boy, you really get around, don't you? Meet a lot of people.
I'll tell you, working in the hemp movement has taken me all over the world so far, and I'm loving it.
Even to Europe, right?
Even to Europe with the
You've been all over Europe with Jack's book and this message.
I walked around all over Europe with a great big box full of 50 books of The Emperor Wears No Clothes, bumper stickers and buttons, and I stood up in Frankfurt, Germany, all over Germany, Paris, England, selling this book and educating the Europeans.
And now we're in the Hemp Museum over there, right?
Yeah.
We're in the Hemp Museum over there.
Yep.
Okay, now I understand you're doing not just one, but two initiatives that you're working on. You're doing the hemp initiative to legalize hemp cannabis as a product, a crop and so on. And then there's this one for the fully informed jury. I guess the jury has to be told that they can change laws or something?
Well,
or what's this all about?
jurors knew this information until 1967. When you served on a jury, you knew that if there was a bad law or you thought it was a bad law or you could listen to the defendant's motives, you could vote down a bad law. It was our protection. Before we had a Bill of Rights, we had this law I know we're not supposed to know. Since 1967, over a 1964 case, the government has outlawed that you find out or know that you have this right or you can't serve on a jury. When you serve on a jury, the judge asks in voir dire that he says to you that if any of you disagree with the law or as law is written, you must excuse yourself from the jury because you must follow the law as written. If any of you think that you can go your own way, then you cannot serve on the jury. Well, until 1967, that was a lie. Every juror knew that he had the right to overrule the judge. Well, the first rule from the Peter Zenger case in 1735, where the jury overruled the Crown when the Crown said you couldn't say anything bad against him, and the jury came back innocent because he had told the truth about the Crown, until John Jay and Tom Jefferson said you've got to have juries as the final check and balances on the executive, legislative, and judicial branch. So what we've done is we're not changing any laws. We are proposing a constitutional amendment for California, and we hope for a model for the whole United States. And all it does is redelineate and tell what rights you have as a juror. That's already the law, but if you know you have this right now in California, you can't serve on a jury. We're making it so you can have this right and know you have this right and serve.
If you know you're right.
If you know you have this right, you can't serve on a jury. It is your right. So you have to,
Now it's Republican to me.
it sounds like catch-22 to me.
In Kentucky, aren't they using this law
Well,
right
half
now?
of all the prohibition cases in the 1920s and 30s ended in hung juries because the juries knew this, and the prosecutor and the government stopped prosecuting.
That's happening in Kentucky right now.
On growing cases. The purpose of this act is to assure that jurors are made aware of A, the juror's inherent right to judge whether the law or laws applicable to the case being tried are unjust or misapplied. B, the juror's traditional right to vote according to conscience. To this end, juries affected by this act shall be allowed to hear evidence concerning the defendant's motives. Whenever state or local government is one of the parties in any trial by jury, the court must inform the jurors that in addition to the responsibility to judge the facts of the case, they have the inherent right to judge the law itself. Well, now that you heard it, you already know you have this right, and it doesn't matter whether you vote for it, it's your law. This is your right. And the government took it away from you, and if you know you have this right, you can't serve on a jury. Well, you guys can't serve on a jury now unless you lie to the judge. Some of you might think you want to get excused from juries, but that's how we're making bad laws. The reason was so that bad government employees over bad public policy, judges, legislators, cops could not pass a bad law for things that displeased them and then grab up 12 of us and make them rubber stamp this bad law on our neighbor. We had a way out. We could say, hey, jury nullification. One of us could hang a jury or all of us could come back innocent and that person would go free because there was a bad law. Who would say to a person who's giving his child, for instance, marijuana for his asthma, where the kid's going to live a lot longer than if he uses the legal government medicine, when he can tell the jury that, what jury's going to come back and convict this person? Nobody's going to convict this person. Well, so the law doesn't want you to find out this information, so you can't hear defendant's motives. Under this, you will hear defendant's motives, and you can go according to conscience.
Wow.
I mean, who would rather see a kid die than get well and get high?
Really?
You know, for asthma, and live 6 to 12 years long. Go home and tell your mama that you want to die 6 to 12 years sooner so you can be a good government person for Bush and Bill Bennett.
Our drug
and
bazaar.
Dan Quayle probably smoked this stuff. In fact, I'd like to see him on a lie detector test.
Okay, now how many signatures do you need for the hemp initiative and for the jury rights initiative?
385,000 valid voter signatures in California for the hemp initiative and 595,000 for the jury rights initiative, which is a constitutional amendment and requires more signatures. We have hundreds of people out now petitioning. We're training them to get good signatures in the first 10 days now. But the initiative goes on to early July. We have the time to collect good signatures and teach petitioners. And when we're done, Captain Ed and I have always hoped to have an army of petitioners of 1,000 or 1,500 people that one day are trained from day one. Freedom fighters and reefer raiders, maybe. Ronald Reagan said reefer people could never make the ballot, that our minds are too slow. Well, Ronnie, my mind's not too slow, and I don't have to read my lines.
That's right. That's right.
Now, do you think you're going to succeed?
Oh, yeah. Why don't you? Nobody can beat the truth. Can anybody beat the truth?
Absolutely not.
No, absolutely
no
not.
Way, man.
This man and I have been out there telling the truth, and nobody's ever said we're wrong. They keep arresting us 33 times. They have beaten us in jails. They have done physical things to me. I'm not going to describe on this air, but there's nothing that can beat a fact. And there's no, and I don't care how popular a president thinks he is, when people realize that he's killed off a planet and he's killed off the knowledge of a planet, and he's allowed millions of people to die prematurely and in pain and in misery, and has ruined the quality of life that can be gotten with a good, simple medicine that never killed anybody except at the hands of bad public policy and police carrying out bad public policy with a vengeance.
Get down, dude. Say it like it is. Yeah. Now, if someone wants to say, I want a petition, right?
Yeah.
They want to get involved with this. How do they do it? Who do they contact?
They go
Who
to
do they call?
6702 Van Nuys Boulevard, 6702 Van Nuys Boulevard in Van Nuys, California.
Okay.
And they go to H&H, or they come to 39 Park Avenue in Venice.
All right.
Or call 213-392-1806. 213-392-1806.
All right.
And then you can petition for us. We'll teach you how to petition. We'll put you out in the field. We'll train you. We'll stay out there. We'll keep you all night at the 7-Elevens and the Ralphs getting signatures. and you'll get the munchies legally.
All right. Yeah. Okay. Now, what are you going to do after you get all the signatures collected? What do you do with them? And then what's the process?
Well, we make sure that all the bad signatures are weeded out. And they're not necessarily bad, but if the petitioner doesn't know the rule, for instance, if somebody signs a petition, Ben Franklin. We have to find out how he spells Franklin, with a Y or an I.
Okay.
And then we say, did you have a middle initial? He said, oh yeah, I had an M. And is your name Benjamin or Benji, or was it really Ben or Benet? Oh no, it's Bennett. So we have to find out that information. We have to elicit that. So we get on the petition, on the printed part, Bennett M. Franklin, so they can look up the scribble. They can't even read the scribble of the signature, but they have to have the printed material right. They have to have the address right.
All right.
And that's what we teach. And that's what we do. We look for petitions that are really good and clean, and the ones that are totally unreadable, we get rid of.
And they have to be registered voters.
They have to be registered voters and sign it on their own county sheet.
All right. Gentlemen, I have really learned a lot and had a lot of fun having you both on the show.
All right,
it has been exciting and interesting. I hope that this initiative just skyrockets. I understand it's a blueprint for the nation, right?
Yes. Have you seen the back of our shirts?
Nah.
Well, yeah.
Check it out. Paper, fiber, fuel, all the things that you can do with it, right? The teaching T-shirt. And pretty much says it all.
Yeah. And here are the health statistics. You live longer if you smoke pot than if you do no drugs, and 8 to 24 years longer than people that use alcohol and tobacco.
All right. Well, again, then remember, the next time that you see me coming across your television screens, you'll know that it's time for hemp.
On my feet and I'm still, Lord, I'm still. Smuggled some smoking folks from Mexico, baked by the sun every time I go to Mexico. And I'm willing, I've been from Tucson to Tucumcari, to Hatchapee to Tonopah, doing every kind of rig that's ever been made. Driven by the back roads so I would not get weighed. If you give me weed, whites, and wine, you show me a sign, I'll be willing to be moving.
If you're looking for a doctor to help you with medical marijuana anywhere in the United States, you can call us at that number. Here in Portland, it's 503-235-4606. That's 503-235-4606. If you're outside of Portland, you can call our toll-free number. That's 1-888-499-THCF or 8423. 888-499-8423. Any patients you know out there that need a doctor to help them get medical marijuana, tell them to give us a call. Hey, Elvie, we're off to Columbia.
We're off to Columbia. So
it's
I
great.
expect no phone calls during the next 6 weeks.
Here is Mr. John Cornett. He's going to play some tunes for about a minute here. Thank you, John. Thank you, viewers. We'll have tape shows the next couple weeks. We'll be back live on December 11th. Help us restore hemp.
Bring it back. Bring it